Hello! What am I gonna make with these? That's the question of today's video. Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Umbriel and I do knitting podcasts and other knitting related videos on this YouTube channel. And today I want to talk about this yarn. This beautiful, beautiful yarn. Because I got this yarn and I thought I knew what I wanted to make with it, but I changed my mind. And today I'm going to show you 7 ideas that I have, so 7 different knitting patterns that I can knit with this yarn. And after talking about it, I hope I will have made my decision, because I still am not sure what I want to make with it. So also I'm asking you to help me decide what I'm gonna knit with this yarn. So let's start a little bit. I'll first talk about the yarn. So this is Noro Kakigori. So here you can see the tag. Noro Kakigori. It is a very hard to get yarn. I feel like. And I found this yarn somewhere in an online shop in the Netherlands. That's where I'm from. And I was so happy I found it because, okay, I'll first tell you the little history of why I got this yarn. I saw the Terrazzo Sweater by Petite knit, and you might have seen it as well on Instagram, for example. And she knit the Terrazzo Sweater in another Noro yarn, which is the Noro Sock Silk Garden Solo, I think, in a similar colorway, held together with mohair. And I thought, oh, that's really beautiful. I want to get that yarn. And then I found the Kakigori yarn, and it's very similar looking. And I thought it would be nice to make it with this. Yeah, and then I saw some of those sweaters knitted up in the Kakigori held together with a mohair, and I wasn't that excited anymore. So that's why I have this video. Okay, first up, the Kakigori yarn. I have my laptop here so I can know for sure that I have all the right information. So the Noro yarn, the Kakigori, is 50% cotton, 30% silk, 10% viscose and 10% polyamide. It's a DK weight yarn, but as you can see, if I hold a strand out, or some strands out, some strands are a little thicker than the others, like it varies in thickness. So that's a good thing to know about this yarn. There you go. And it's beautifully marled, so it's like kind of a neutral, but it has so many colors in it and it's not a neutral, but yeah. And one of these skeins, each of these skeins is 200 grams, so I have 400 grams in total, and each skein has 600 meters. So in total I'll have 1200 meters of a DK weight yarn. That's good to know to make the decisions for the different patterns. So I think that's all for the yarn. Then the first pattern I'm going to talk about is the Terrazzo Sweater. Don't worry, I have more ideas, but I first want to talk about that pattern because that's why I got this yarn in the first place. So the Terrazzo Sweater is a pattern by Petite knit. It is an oversized raglan sweater with a big turtleneck made with a twisted rib, which is beautiful. And I would love to make this sweater, but I am not sure if I want to make it in this yarn. Because if I look at the pictures from Petite knit, and I might be very nitpicky right now, if I compare those to people who made the Terrazzo Sweater with Kakigori yarn with a mohair, it doesn't look the same, and I really prefer the way that the version of Petite knit looks. And yeah, it's a little more gray, a little more like the colors stand out a little more with the yarn that Petite knit used. So a little bit about the Terrazzo sweater. It's a worsted weight sweater knit with 5mm needles for the body, and it requires somewhere between 1,000 meters and 1,300 meters. So I will definitely have enough yarn. I would have to hold it with a mohair though. And I also, another reason I don't think I want to do the Terrazzo sweater anymore is because you hold this together with a mohair. Well, you can hold it together with something else too to get the right gauge, but if I hold this together with a mohair, it kind of seems a little counterintuitive because this is a very summery yarn. It's cotton, viscose, silk, the materials I just mentioned. And it feels a little weird to hold that together with a mohair to make it a not so summery sweater, because I would think it's nice to maybe use the properties of this yarn to make it a summery sweater, and then I can use a wool together with the mohair for the Terrazzo sweater if I decide to make it at some point. So then I started looking because, okay, DK weight, 1,200 meters, and I want this to shine, and I want it to be summery. So next up, after the Terrazzo sweater, I go to another Petite knit. Don't worry, not everything is Petite knit, but another Petite knit sweater, which is the June top. And I've seen a bunch of people knitting the June top in the Noro Kakigori, and it just looks really nice. I'll put in some pictures with the names of the people who did that. It just like looks super nice, and that's like the properties of the summery yarn in good use, I think. The June top needs a DK weight, or I think there's also a June top light which has a fingering weight, but I'm looking at the June top DK weight. And it's the pattern is 2 strands held together, 2 fingering yarns held together, and then you need in total somewhere between 750 and 1,300 meters, but you divide that by 2 to get the DK weight because you need 2 strands. So I would say it's maximum 650 meters, and this is 600 meters. Yeah, depending on which size you're knitting. So I would think I would have enough, but I have 2. So that would be a shame, because then I only use one of these, and I want to make all of the use of this yarn, and I don't think I want 2 similar garments with the same yarn. I don't know. So then I looked a little further. Option number 3, and this is a sweater by a different designer, and this sweater is designed for the Kakigori yarn. So I'll put in a picture. It's the No Sweat shirt by Park Williams, and it's this really nice summery sweater with a hood and like straps to like close the hood. And you can see in the picture, it's really a summery sweater. She's wearing it with a bathing suit on, and it's like, it looks really nice. The only thing, and I am not sure if I can put that on the screen, but I think, let me see, yeah, it is knitted with the wrong side out. So usually when you work stockinette, you have the V's, and then on the back side you have the bubbles. This one is the bobbles on the outside. And what I've noticed with my knitting, especially using variegated yarn, that the yarn and the colors and everything in it, it shines the most on a stockinette fabric. So I think you could adjust the pattern but I wouldn't prefer this beautiful yarn to be anything too textured, because I feel like the texture kind of fights with the beautiful variation that the yarn already has. So I feel like I really want to have like the right side stockinette to use for this yarn, so you can really see how beautiful the yarn is and you don't get distracted by the pattern, by the texture. Does that make sense? Yeah. That doesn't mean that the pattern isn't beautiful. The pattern is really nice, and I like it that sometimes to use a different part of your knitting, to use knitting in a different way, and to use the wrong side of the stockinette on the outside as a right side. So I really like that, but for this yarn, for me, my taste would be, I think it would be nice to keep it simple. So yeah, now I'm like I'm talking about patterns, ideas, how to use this yarn, and then I'm also saying, yeah, but I'm not going to do it because it is. So you kind of already know where I'm going. Then I will go to number 4, which is okay, I have knitted this pattern before, and it's definitely one of my most worn knits because it's so useful and so yeah, it's such a staple in my closet. It's the Collett Tee by Witre design, and I knitted it in the recommended yarn, which is the Sunless Garn Duo, which is half wool, half cotton. It's knitted on 4mm needles, and it requires a DK weight yarn, so that will be perfect. And the yardage is somewhere between 450 and 900 meters. So that would be 1.5 of this maximum of these two. So maybe even you could make it with 1. My first one, I knitted exactly in 600 meters, but I went up a needle size to 4.5mm, and then I knitted a size down because I only had 600 meters and I wanted to make sure I could make that shirt from all the skeins that I had. So I would think, if I remember well what the Sunless Garn Duo looks like, but I would think that this is a lot thinner, especially the thinner parts of the yarn. Like for example here, it's pretty thin. It goes to like more like a sport weight thickness, whereas let's see here, it's pretty thick. So there's more like a DK, heavier DK weight. Yeah, it's been falling apart, by the way, from me just like looking at it a lot. So maybe I should do this one from that one. That one looks a lot nicer still. Anyway, back to the Collett Tee. Yeah, I really want to use up all the yarn, and I'm okay with playing a little bit of yarn chicken, which is when you are at the end, you're like playing a game with your yarn, like who's gonna win, you or the yarn? Are you gonna make it with all the yarn that you have? So I don't think I'll make the Collett Tee. I am gonna make another Collett Tee, but for that you should watch my next knitting podcast. I haven't started it yet, but I'm gonna. Yeah, so that is option number 4. And then at the end, I have 3 options that I'm really considering. So now you have 4 options if you want to know what to do with the Kakigori yarn. But I have 3 options for myself that I'm still considering. The first one is a pattern by Ozetta. And Ozetta, she has a lot of lovely cardigans patterns. And I found the field day cardigan that it requires a DK weight, which is this picture. It requires somewhere between 800 and 2,000 meters, and it goes from an extra small to a 5XL. So I might be able to squeeze this out of the 1,200 meters that I have. I would maybe make it a little shorter, see if I can go down a size, which gives me a little less positive ease or something, but I do that a lot anyway. It is knitted in 4.5 millimeter needles, and it just looks like a beautiful cozy cardigan. Yeah, it has a drop shoulder. It's just really nice. And if I'm not gonna make it with this, I'll probably make this anyway, because it's just looks like such a staple you should have in your wardrobe. So that's an option. Then option number 6, and for me option number 2, is a pattern that I've had in my Ravelry queue for such a long time. And I do have other yarn in my stash that I want to use for this, but I'm still hesitant. But anyway, let's say which pattern it is. It is sweater number 16 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. And I'll put a picture in. It is, well, My Favorite Things Knitwear is very popular. And I would say that this is one of her less popular designs. The only thing that I don't like about this pattern is the size inclusivity. It only goes up to a XXL. Although for myself, I usually go down a lot of sizes, even though they say I should have like 10 centimeters positive ease. I like negative ease because it just fits my body better. Yeah, but it's not nice to promote that on your, I don't know, a whole different story. We'll talk about that another time. It says, the pattern says that it needs a light fingering, but I'm a little confused by that because it uses the Knitting for Olive merino held together with the compatible cashmere, which would equate to at least like a heavier fingering or like a sport weight. So I think on Ravelry that is not really correct. It uses 4 millimeter needles, and the yardage is somewhere between 1,000 and 1,400 meters. So that would be definitely, so that will definitely be enough to make this sweater. And I think it will be really pretty. I wouldn't make it with the stripes, so it will be completely in the Noro Kakigori, and then a ribbed sweater, 2x2 rib. I think it's going to be beautiful. And to make a note about the reverse stockinette compared to this with the structured knits that I talked about just now, I do think it will look a lot different, a lot cleaner in a 2x2 rib. Like, but who knows? Maybe I don't like it. What it looks like. I haven't seen anyone doing it, so yeah, interesting. Interesting to see what it would be like. And then finally, and little secret, this is, I'm the most excited about this one, but I really don't know between the 3 last ones that I share. But finally, one more petite knit pattern. Yeah, the pattern that I would make it with is the Maude Tee. And to be honest, if I would see these pictures from Petite Knit, I would not be interested in knitting this pattern. It's a little too like, yeah, I don't know how to call it, but a little too fancy, I guess. I like it to be a little more modern. I don't know if that's not really contradictions, but you know what I mean. But the reason that I get to this pattern is I saw someone making alterations on this pattern, and she is Knits and Gigs on Instagram, and she made the Maude Tee without the buttons, without the buttonholes, in a cotton merino, I think, with stripes. So it's kind of almost a merge between the Maude Tee and the Marseille sweater by Petite, which also has stripes. It's really classic, but it's a summery sweater. And then I thought, wow, what about this for the Maude Tee with long sleeves? So that would be actually the only alteration, but I also would omit the buttons, I think, to have this like nice summery sweater with a collar that you would just have open, so it really would look like a relaxed, classy, summery polo, which is a little more laid back. So the specs of the Maude Tee is it is knitted in a DK weight, and she used mohair held with a light fingering wool, which would make it very hot for a summer sweater, so this would be a good alternative. And the meterage, the yardage, is somewhere between 900 and 1900 meters. And that kind of worries me a little bit, because especially if I want to make a long sleeves, I don't know if I would have enough, but I also don't know if I'm pretty sure this is the because it's two strands held together, I'm always not sure at the yardage on Ravelry if they mean both of the strands. So say you would have a shirt that is in total 400 meters, but you use two strands, so they say 800 meters because the two strands are both 400 meters and you need 800 meters. So sometimes I'm a little confused with that, but here I'm pretty sure the amount that it says here is the total amount needed that I would need for a DK weight. So that worries me a little bit because it's short sleeves, it has short sleeves. But what I did see, Petite Knit used for the over here at the end of for the arm cuff, I guess, and the cuff at the bottom, ribbing. It's not ribbing, it's I think it's a fold over double knit. So it's like a folded, you know how you can have with a hat, for example, you can just knit it in stockinette and then fold it over and then knit it together and then keep knitting, and then you have like a double layer over here. I think the Oslo hat by Petite Knit has that, but I also seen it in socks by Summerly Designs. I saw a sock. And there's a lot of, that's a very common way to also knit patterns. But I do think there's a lot of extra yardage in there, because you can see on the picture from Petite Knit that her Maude Tee ends at her elbow. So if that's double knitted, then it already goes until here. And the same counts for the bottom of the shirt. So it also would mean that you knit like a whole like 10 centimeters extra that you fold inwards and then knit together. So I would think if I don't do that, because that's the whole point of me saying this, but if you don't do that and just make a rib, then you would save a lot of yarn. And like I said before already in this video, and then I've said a bunch of times before, I usually don't do the recommended positive ease. What I've noticed for myself is if I use a lot of positive ease, it makes me feel very shapeless, and I would be interested if there's more people who have this. So yeah, let me know if you do. Would be interesting to have a conversation about it, I think. About the positive ease and negative ease and what feels good for your body and how it makes you feel when people tell you that you need to do a certain amount of positive ease, which I've had when I've applied for test knits in the past. Yeah, so what I think is that I would knit a really small size actually for this pattern. So if I look at the circumferences, the bust circumference, I am 110 centimeters, 105, I don't know, somewhere around there. They say you should measure yourself every time, but I noticed that my bust measurements actually doesn't really matter. It more matters how your other parts of your body are shaped, but that's the conversation that I'm trying to have. But that's a topic for a different video. Anyway, that would place me in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 5th size, which is an XL. And that would need, yeah, it doesn't say an exact amount of meters, but I'm pretty sure I would go well over the 1200 only for the short sleeve Maude Tee. But I think I will be okay if I would make, because here's the actual finished garment bust circumference, if I would make the size 3, which is the medium, which has a finished bust circumference of 105. So it would give me a negative ease of 5 or 0, I'm not sure. But I think then I can figure it out, and then I can play the yarn chicken that I was talking about that I wanted to do. Don't ask me why. So that's the 7th pattern that I show today. That are my options for the Kakigori yarn. Yeah, so now I have to make a decision. Well, today, this video really helped me thinking about what is important for me, and I've already, while talking about it now, I realized that for me, it will be one of the last 3. So it will be the Field Day Cardigan, Sweater number 16 by My Favorite Things Knitwear, or the Maude Tee. It will be one of those 3. Yeah, and I will think about it, and I will make a decision, and I will let you know, I think in my next knitting podcast. So if you want to know what I'm going to do, then make sure to hang around. You can like subscribe to be able to see my new videos, or just, you know, I sometimes just look up people's usernames. That's also fine. Whatever you want. Yeah, whatever. I hope that this was interesting for you. If you have this yarn, and I hope it gives you inspiration. Also, if you don't have this yarn, but you just want some inspiration for a DK weight sweater or cardigan or something else, then I would hope it's interesting too. Let me know what you would do. So what are your recommendations to me if you see these patterns, or maybe you have a whole different pattern, and then I can start thinking about it all again. So let me know. I hope you enjoyed the video, and see you next time. Have a great day. Bye!